What if everything you know about intelligence is just a tool to keep you compliant? Have you ever thought about that? Imagine intelligence not as a gift, but as a threat to the current order. Society praises genius on the stage, yet at the same time, it fears those who truly think differently. Because those who think differently disrupt the performance. They see the backstage, while others only see the stands. They unmask icons and name the truth. This terrifies power, because power thrives on the crowd's belief. When belief wavers, order begins to crack. So what is true genius? Is it merely innate talent? Or is it a perspective that sets you completely apart? True genius is the ability to see what others ignore. It's the art of turning insight into purposeful action. It doesn't need approval to exist. It requires cold clarity and resolve to thrive. Such genius always unsettles others because it poses inconvenient questions. It asks why we believe what we do. It asks who wrote the rules of the game. It challenges familiar answers. And when challenge turns to action, consequences follow. You'll be misunderstood for seeing through the facade. You'll be doubted for charting your own course. You might lose friendships, connections, and security. But you also gain something else. The chance to think for yourself. The chance to steer the game instead of being steered. The journey from someone who trusts the system to someone who sees through it. It is not for the masses. It demands sacrifice and clarity. But the reward is self-determination and influence. Have you ever felt like you see what others choose to ignore? Number 1. The illusion of intelligence. When knowledge becomes chains. Society tells us intelligence is degrees and certificates. They measure it with test scores and titles. They praise those who answer questions the same way. They grade those who repeat the taught responses. Here, knowledge becomes an act of compliance. People learn not to understand, but to repeat and be accepted. Intelligence turns into a tool for social survival. It's a key that unlocks the door to safety. But that key comes at a cost. The cost is the urge to stop questioning. The cost is losing the ability to doubt what's taught. When people comply, they become easy to control. Power doesn't need to persuade when people already agree. The system teaches them how to follow, not how to think. They eat the stale bread of the majority opinion every day. That bread fills them, but doesn't nourish their minds. They feed on pre-shaped information. They grow safety rather than insight. Insight is seen as rude behavior. Questioning is labeled as defiance. So most choose silence and agreement. And agreement is an easy way to keep going. Others call it legitimized intelligence. But in truth, it's intelligence in chains. The chains are the framework of social norms. That framework keeps the perception within bounds. They become people of the system. They're no longer masters of their own thoughts. They wear knowledge like tattered coats. The coats keep them warm, but hide their true shape. They understand the world through preset patterns. They don't spot the flaws in the script. They don't ask who wrote that script. Refusing to ask is surrendering to subtle power. Power smirks when people accept willingly. It replaces questions with rituals and traditions. Rituals make the truth seem unchangeable. Traditions hide exploitative motives. The chained intellect defends its own chains. They fear losing their place if they speak differently. They fear being ostracized and losing benefits. Free thinking becomes alien and dangerous. Those who dare question are met with suspicion. They call the questioner a troublemaker. But troublemaking here is opening people's eyes. Opening eyes shatters safe narratives. So society punishes the disruptor, even when the disruptor speaks the truth. The truth isn't always welcomed. It often costs those in power their advantage. That's why truth is turned into a risk. And silence becomes a sign of safety. So where is true intelligence in this system? It lies beyond the accepted measures. It's the ability to see the mechanisms at work. It's the capacity for grounded skepticism. It's the art of choosing action over repetition. What happens when you stop believing in others' truth? Number 2, the root of genius, not talent, but cold perception. Genius is not a gift from the heavens. Genius is a blade sharpened in the dark. It's cold, precise, and forged by resolve. It doesn't come by luck. It comes through practice and will. Genius is a different way of seeing. It sees what others overlook. It reads beyond the words. It recognizes motives hidden in actions. From there, it refuses to trust the surface. 3 qualities define true genius. 1. Seeing through the nature of power. Genius discerns who pulls the strings behind the scenes. It recognizes the repeating patterns of power. It understands why symbols hold sway. It isn't fooled by the trappings of authority. It views the system as a machine and finds the weak joints in that machine. 2. Wielding knowledge as a weapon. Knowledge doesn't sit on a shelf. Knowledge must be honed to be effective. Genius uses information with purpose. It turns facts into impactful influence. It doesn't boast about the books it's read. It uses knowledge to effect and change. Knowledge combined with will creates power. 3. Acting while others hesitate. Genius doesn't wait for permission. It seizes the moment when others waver. Timely action makes the difference. Silence and waiting are part of the art, but decisive action determines the outcome. Others delay out of fear of risk. Genius sees risk as a chance to win. It doesn't act impulsively. It measures, then moves decisively. These qualities don't sanctify goodness. They are simply tools for dominance. Genius is the fusion of intellect and resolve. It's like a strategist on the battlefield, mapping behavior and exploiting weaknesses. It doesn't need praise to persist. It doesn't need consensus to act. Genius bears the cost of isolation, but its reward is self-determination. The difference isn't in memory or IQ. It lies in how you use what you know. Many intelligent people fail to succeed because they lack the coldness to apply it. They shy away from what's necessary to win. Genius is cold when it needs to be. It doesn't mean wanton cruelty. It's calculated, not a fit of rage. When you forge these qualities, you stand apart. You become someone who reads the situation. You aren't swept away by the crowd's emotions. You control rather than be controlled. And you take responsibility for the actions you choose. Now, I ask you one question. In this world, what is more dangerous? Ignorance or unchecked clarity? Which answer do you choose? Number 3. The world is a stage. When the intelligent are lulled by their roles. The world is a vast stage. Most of us play the role of the crowd. They clap when prompted. They watch the play and believe the story. They forget someone is directing behind the scenes. Power understands this all too well. So, power stages the scene with precision. It creates symbols to steer emotions. Flags, rituals, speeches, everything is designed. These symbols make decisions feel comforting. People like acting on habit. They find safety in repeated rituals. When rituals take hold, they question less. Thus, power manipulates the collective without unmasking itself. It hides motives behind the beauty of symbols. The genius doesn't join the applause. They aren't fooled by the stage lights. They look toward the curtains and machinery. They ask who pulls the strings for the sound. They track who sets the lights and changes the backdrop. Because understanding the mechanism is true power. When you know the equipment, you can adjust it. You don't need the entire audience to understand. You just need to grasp the right levers. Genius plays the silent observer. They memorize the crowd's habits and reactions. They learn the rhythm of applause and the pauses between lines. Then they write a new script, word by word. Others see change as fate. They call it luck. In reality, it's the art of staging. Power rarely strikes head-on. It chooses to shape the narrative. It plants images so people guide themselves. It erases question marks, replacing them with convenient belief. When belief takes root, people defend the system themselves. They protect symbols like a religion. That's why change doesn't come easily. Genius doesn't rush to dismantle the stage. Instead, they tweak the machinery, swap the lights quietly. They plant new cues step by step. They know how to let the audience love an illusion. Then, when the moment ripens, they draw the curtain. The result is a shift that feels natural. People feel persuaded, not coerced. That's the subtle tactic of those who understand the stage. They know the art of making truth look like fate. Timing and sequence are critical. Miss the beat, and the script tears apart. So genius focuses on every small detail. They observe habits more than arguments. They measure the crowd's pulse more than its logic. Thus, learning to read the stage is a skill of power. It lets you navigate instead of being swept along. That's why many successful leaders are masters of the stage. They craft symbols, not just wield raw power. They know when to appear as needed and vanish like fate. Do you want to be just an actor on that stage? Or do you want to hold the backstage keys and write the script? Whoever understands the mechanism will control it. Number 4. The difference between knowing and doing. Knowledge unused is useless. Books stacked on shelves don't create power. Many intelligent people remain poor because they don't dare wield their intellect like a blade. They collect facts, then lock them away. They keep knowledge like a collection. A collection is beautiful, but changes nothing. The world needs doers, not just knowers. The difference lies in the ability to transform from information to impactful influence. That is virtue in its truest sense. Virtue isn't a fancy word. It's the will to act intelligently, with purpose. Virtue is the blend of insight and resolve. It's the ability to use what you know to shape outcomes. Those with virtue see knowledge as a weapon. They sharpen it, seeking the moment to strike. Those without virtue are mere storage vaults. They become libraries of lifeless ideas. A library stores a mind axe. Strategists use their minds like campaign maps. Strategists don't fear being misunderstood. Strategists accept temporary losses. They trade safety for long-term advantage. A library is safe. A strategist takes risks. Those who learn just to be praised change nothing. Those who learn to act set the script in motion. Action needs calculation, not impulsiveness. Ignorant action is reckless without purpose. Action with virtue is a guided weapon. You can read your whole life and remain a spectator. You can act once and change history. Courage isn't charging into everything. Courage is choosing when to step forward. One timely decision outweighs a fortune of knowledge. Knowledge lies the foundation. Action builds the house. A house unbuilt remains a blueprint. Those who want to be remembered must build. The will to transform is the minimum habit to forge. Start with small, meaningful actions. Test, fail, refine, and keep going. That's the strategist's cycle. Not every action needs to be public. Silent action is often stronger. Winners are those who act when it matters. They don't wait for praise or permission. They measure success by real change. They don't confuse knowledge with power. Power is the ability to make others comply. Knowledge is just one resource to gain. When you know but don't act, you lose. When you act ignorantly, you lose too. Thus, you must combine knowledge with courage. That's virtue in modern life. It demands discipline over inspiration. It requires training, not just reading and copying. Strategic thinking isn't innate. It's forged through trial and cost. You can become a strategist step by step. Start by using one piece of knowledge to experiment. Record the results and refine your approach. Repeat until your actions become systematic. When your actions are systematic, you make an impact. When you make an impact, others start to listen. And that's how power is born. So do you dare to act on what you know is right, even if the whole world opposes you? Number 5. Cunning, the evil of purposeful intelligence. Genius is always suspected when it breaks the rules. Ordinary people follow rules like a cloak of safety. Genius looks at rules and sees the gaps. They don't accept patterns drawn by others. When they act differently, the crowd feels threatened. Difference triggers fear of losing order. Power fears losing control instantly. So it labels differences as abnormal. History is full of obvious examples. Socrates was accused of corrupting Athenian youth. His questions were seen as rebellion. He was charged with undermining old values. Galileo proclaimed truths about astronomy. His words challenged religious authority. The result was condemnation and censorship. Machiavelli wrote raw truths about power. I mention him for his cold candor. Books like his unsettle those in charge, because different questions have legitimacy. When default rules are doubted, stability wavers. People prefer safety over creativity. Safety creates a predictable, obedient environment. Clarity disrupts that habit dangerously. The crowd's psyche hates those who break the mold. They call the different odd, dangerous, or rebellious. When you ask questions, they call it offensive. An entire society can turn to punish you. Punishment is how old norms are maintained. Thus, genius is branded as criminal. They're misunderstood because they don't follow the script. Suspicion ties to the feeling of being deceived. People fear being tricked by new authenticity. They readily blame to preserve their safe state. Genius changes the game by resetting rules. Resetting rules makes rulers lose their edge. Losing that edge leads to resistance and suppression. That's why genius is often lonely. They're isolated because the crowd has different interests. At the same time, the powerful fear of losing control. They're ready to use media to smear differences. They craft narratives that turn the different into threats. This instinct protects the system's core. The system learns to eliminate threats at all costs. Thus, genius needs the skill of concealment. They must know when to speak and when to stay silent. Wisdom is knowing how much to reveal. Genius understands that exposing too soon is dangerous. They use a strategy to preserve their ideas. They turn danger into a calculated opportunity. The cunning balance action with restraint. And they accept the cost of standing apart from the crowd. Those unwilling to pay that price are held back. So difference is often seen as a crime, not because it's evil, but because it shakes the system. Genius doesn't expect acclaim in their lifetime. Often, they're misunderstood and condemned early. But history remembers those who dared rewrite the rules. And that's why they're hunted while alive. Do you dare to be the one who breaks those rules? Number 6, the art of concealment and timing, the power of silence. The strategy of the fox and the lion is an ancient lesson. The fox, cunning, observes carefully in the shadows. The lion, powerful, strikes when the moment arrives. Genius combines both qualities. It doesn't attack at every opportunity. It knows how to wait for the meaningful moment. Silence is a tool, not a weakness. Many who reveal their hand are hunted immediately. The clever who expose too soon become targets. Thus, learning to conceal is essential. Concealment doesn't mean ignorance. It's the art of hiding capability. You must feign weakness when necessary. You must seem agreeable while calculating. When others are at ease, you prepare your move. Silence lets you gather information. Silence lets you uncover others' motives. Silence gives you the advantage of time. Time is the deciding factor of power. Waiting too early wastes opportunity. Waiting too late loses your only edge. Thus, the art is choosing the perfect moment. When you act, make it seem predestined. Decisive action leaves opponents no time to react. Thorough preparation makes moves look like fate. Others will call it luck. In reality, it's the result of restraint. Keeping intentions secret is an art. Revealing too much kills the element of surprise. Surprise is the weapon of the cunning. Others rely on prediction and habit. When they predict wrong, they fail. How many times do you want them to misjudge you? Concealment includes feigning emotions. Showing emotion isn't always advantageous. Sometimes a smile is a screen for plans. Sometimes praise is bait for information. The clever practice of controlling their expressions. They're like actors tasked with deceiving the audience. But deception here is for survival and victory. The old art called it concealing intent. Today, it remains more effective than ever. In the game of power, revelation is suicide. Of course, there are times you must speak. Choosing when you speak is the most critical part. Speaking at the wrong time backfires. Speaking at the right time sparks instant change. While you wait, work quietly every day. Build networks without boasting. Prepare resources and backup plans. The strategist has multiple exits and levers. They don't bet everything on a single path. They know when to sacrifice the small to keep the big. Restraint also builds discipline. Discipline keeps you from acting on emotion. Emotion inflates risks and clouds goals. Discipline makes action systematic and repeatable. Repetition creates a long-term edge. Others tire and gradually retreat. You'll still stand if your plan endures. A key warning is against overconfidence. Overconfidence leads to premature display. Showing off creates enemies and loses strategic secrets. The clever know not to flaunt early victories. Time lets you turn risks into rewards. Ultimately, silence isn't weakness. It's a strategy that pays the price for power. It keeps you safe while you prepare weapons. Weapons here are ideas, alliances, and timing. When you strike, it must be decisive and complete. One memorable blow outweighs countless shallow hits. Learn to be seen without being seen through. Learn to say little and do much. Have you ever had to feign weakness to survive? Number 7. The illusion of morality, the weapon of the weak. Moral standards appear as a cloak of safety. But that cloak isn't made for the strong. It serves those who want to bind others' feet. Many rules are born from fear. Fear of losing power creates protective laws. The weak craft standards are used to shield themselves. They make the strong feel guilt. Moral words replace raw strength. When strength is judged by morality, the weak win. Morality becomes a tool for those without power. Rules restrain the strong, but let the weak survive. A safe society sometimes pays with stagnation. The bold or ambitious are forced into molds. They're called selfish, greedy, or cruel. Those labels diminish their influence. So many choose to hide their true nature. They pretend to comply to stay in the game. Machiavelli said something cold and real. There's no absolute morality in the arena of power. Only choices that bring results and survival. Life tests actions, not intentions. Whoever holds power decides the values. When the goal is to endure, morality becomes a tactic. Sometimes you feign virtue to maintain stability. Sometimes you show ruthlessness to preserve order. Effectiveness answers the tough questions. That's the logic history often repeats. Noble titles don't save the weak. Fine words don't protect fraying systems. The strong must understand the language of real power. That language is results, not words. Many clever people use morality as a shield. They speak of justice to hide true motives. They call for ideals to make actions acceptable. This makes people believe in new structures. Others defend themselves by accusing immorality. They use moral labels to eliminate rivals. Thus, the art is knowing when to pretend and when to dare act for real. Not every bad act comes from good people. Not every good deed stems from goodwill. Judgment must rest on real outcomes. Those who create order and security are remembered. Those who only praise morality without results are forgotten. Many clever people know how to wield moral symbols. They use them to achieve long-term goals. They understand that moral appearances persuade the crowd. And the crowd is a vital force to control. Yet, a warning cannot be ignored. Using morality as a weapon can backfire. When it is too obvious, people see through the scheme. Then, credibility and power collapse together. Thus, there must be limits to moral calculation. The wise don't overuse the mask for too long. They change masks when the times demand change. In the end, there are two ways to exist in this society. One is to always seem moral to be loved. The other is to manipulate morality to become essential. When you speak the truth, they call you immoral. When you pretend, they call you wise. Which path do you choose for your life? Number 8. The loneliness of the clear-sighted. The cost of vision. The clearer you see, the narrower the path. Deep understanding leaves you with fewer companions. A sharp gaze makes you see things differently. What others overlook becomes vivid to you. But clarity is also why you're shunned. When you speak the truth, many aren't ready to hear it. They cling to safety over reality. You become the one who makes them uneasy. They don't hate you for being bad. They hate you for shattering the comfort of ignorance. Loneliness is the tax on vision. You lose some easy relationships. You lose the consensus you once had. You're labeled as strange or extreme. Those words slowly sever intimacy. But loneliness is also a marker of independence. When you don't need others' validation, you're free. You don't act to please the crowd. You act by your own map of understanding. This journey begins with questioning. You start asking questions long forbidden. Questions set you apart more than right answers. And when you're different, you're rarely invited to the table. People choose to sit with those like them. You see this clearly when you start to change. You realize many relationships are conditional. They love you for the benefits, not for your vision. When benefits shift, friendships fade. That's the cost of seeing through the surface. But there's another side to understand. Humans have two deep desires. One is to be loved, accepted, and safe. The other is to be free, understood, and respected for their solitude. The loved are embraced in warm caves. The feared are kept at a solemn distance. Love brings warmth, but also binds. Fear brings freedom, but also coldness. The loved have a duty to comfort. The feared have a duty to decide. Love dies when faced with great inconvenience. Fear endures when steady leadership is needed. You'll lose warmth when you choose the other path. You'll lose ease when you choose freedom. Loneliness deepens inner self-reliance. It forces you to answer tough questions yourself. You learn to self-soothe and judge right from wrong. You hone the skill of seeing far and taking responsibility. There's no illusion of safety in this choice. You must accept being misunderstood in the short term. You must accept loss for the sake of influence. The great often pay dearly for their vision. They're criticized in life and celebrated after death. That's a pattern history repeats. But the reward isn't just for posterity. Self-determination and freedom are rewards now. When you no longer depend on approval, when you act for goals, not fame, you become resolute and hard to sway. There's an art to enduring loneliness without breaking. You must nurture intellect and resilience. You need a small but deep community around you. Choose companions by values, not numbers. Find those who seek to understand, not just applaud. Keep learning and reassessing yourself. Keep your mind sharp, but your heart unhardened. Loneliness isn't a permanent sentence. It's a training ground for true leadership. You may be hated today and essential tomorrow. The question is whether you'll pay the price. Do you choose to live loved or live free? Do you choose safety or self-determination? That choice shapes how you move forward. Are you ready to bear the cost of vision? Number 9. The architecture of power. How to shape collective perception. Power builds frameworks for the crowd's vision. Religion turns symbols into unshakable beliefs. A single flag can rally an entire nation. Politics uses narratives to justify actions. Media amplifies messages to the rhythm of public taste. When symbols are strong, reasoning becomes redundant. Whoever controls the narrative controls public emotions. And when emotions drive, behavior follows. Perception equals reality is an unwritten law. If people believe it, it instantly has consequences. Social reality is forged by shared perspectives. A repeated claim becomes truth. Thus, whoever masters storytelling holds most of the power. History is full of stark, cold examples. Ancient churches crafted myths to legitimize authority. Dynasties used rituals to sustain long-term rule. Today, the media embeds meaning into images. A single video can shift collective attitudes. A hashtag can spark a movement overnight. When you understand the mechanism, you can intervene. First, recognize the symbols being used. Ask who benefits from that narrative. Who speaks loudest on the stage? Who manipulates backstage, unnoticed? Next, analyze the rhythm and patterns. Collective habits reveal weaknesses in the system. When habits are grasped, shaping messages becomes easier. Third, question the source of information. Sources have agendas, not all are neutral. Understand who funds and who controls the channels. Fourth, reframe the meaning of symbols. Reinterpreting shifts emotions slowly. A new symbol can change mass behavior. You can create small symbols in your sphere of control. A new habit in a group can spread widely. Start with the stories you tell daily. Design messages with the audience's steps in mind. Repeat intentionally until it becomes a habit. Use simple images to embed perception. Short, concrete words capture hearts more than reasoning. When needed, pair evidence with facts to boost trust. But evidence is less powerful than familiarity. People act on what feels familiar, not on data. So build familiarity with the message you want. Practicing perception control starts small. Try shaping how your group talks. Create new rituals for a project or organization. Observe reactions and adjust skillfully. Don't show off too soon. Gradual change avoids strong crowd resistance. When the time is ripe, adjustments feel natural. Thus, you move from storyteller to reality designer. But remember, wielding perception power is a responsibility. Misuse leads to disconnection and loss of trust. When people spot the scheme, they turn against it. So weigh the benefits and long-term consequences. A well-designed perception serves order. An abused perception breeds chaos. You can learn to read this architecture of power. And you can learn to build your own. Start by observing, questioning, and experimenting. When you understand, you don't just see the world. You gain the ability to shape it. Number 10. The art of illusion. Crafting reality through belief. People will die for symbols they don't understand. Symbols control emotions more than reason. When emotions rise, actions follow. The clever learn to blend truth with lies. They know truth lies the groundwork for deception. A pinch of truth gives lies weight. Truth flavors the lie. A lie can't stand if it is entirely false. Seasoned with truth, it becomes persuasive. A lie mixed with truth can rule. The clever plant reveals its real details to build trust. They use true facts to mask larger intentions. They craft stories that people want to hear. They choose words that hit deep emotions. They know rhythm matters more than arguments. Pace, cadence, and repetition breed habits. Repetition turns claims into social truths. They drape a message in layers of symbols. Symbols make messages memorable. Images strike faster than dry data. A single picture can outdo pages of news. A slogan can shape collective behavior. Thus, the art is designing perception. Design begins by understanding shared fears. Next is finding the hope the masses need. Combining fear and hope creates strong motives. Skilled storytellers tap into both. They offer just enough truth to avoid exposure. Then they guide emotions along their script. When the public feels secure, they act. Actions often go unchecked by reason. That's when power spreads with little suspicion. Those who shape perception keep a safe distance. They don't need to persuade each individual. They just need to grasp key points to amplify. Amplification spreads influence with little effort. When you know this, you can counter it. Countering starts by verifying symbols. Ask about the origin of the story you hear. Ask who benefits when people believe it. If the benefit isn't clear, stay wary. You can peel back symbols to see the framework. Peeling back is the first step to redefining meaning. Redefining meaning shifts public feeling. Shifting feelings changes behavior long-term. Start small by changing words in your group. Repeat new symbols to build new habits. Create small rituals for organizations to take root. Pair evidence with symbols for lasting messages. But don't think power comes without responsibility. Using illusion to manipulate is a double-edged sword. When people spot the scheme, backlash is fierce. Lost trust is hard to regain. So, weigh the benefits against long-term ethics. The wise use illusion with restraint. They craft illusions to build, not to trample. Learn to discern when symbols heal or shackle. You can become a responsible symbol maker. Or you can be one controlled by symbols. The choice is yours right now. Are you believing what you choose or what they want you to believe? Number 11. The discipline of power, staying sharp after victory. Victory easily lulls people to sleep. Winning distorts perception of risk. Those who were once lucky believe it's a skill. They start believing their own story. The illusion of glory is a silent destroyer. It breeds complacency and erases vigilance. Many clever people ruin themselves with arrogance. They believe they can't be wrong anymore. That's when hidden enemies strike. Failure often stems from craving glory. Pride kills faster than any other defeat. The great know this danger first. They place discipline above all emotions. Discipline is the antidote to complacency. Discipline sustains long-term sharpness. It's the habit of constant checking and reflection. The disciplined question themselves relentlessly. They analyze victories, seeking hidden flaws. They don't trust the crowd's praise. Praise easily becomes bait for arrogance. Machiavelli warned not to trust glory. Trusting glory ties you to an image. A fine image makes the strong careless. Only discipline keeps you sharp after a win. Discipline is practicing control over desires. It forces you to stick to schedules and standards. Discipline is retreating when danger signals appear. Discipline is knowing victory is a temporary task. It's not a permanent title. The disciplined always prepare alternatives. They build structures, not relying on fleeting inspiration. Structures guard against sudden collapse. Discipline is also about wisely managing relationships, not letting admirers steer critical decisions, not letting flatterers sow blindness. They keep a distance from unnecessary flattery. They control external information. They use feedback to refine processes, not for praise. The habit of reassessing goals is essential. Each victory is dissected as a lesson. They separate luck from true ability. They calculate the hidden costs of every decision. Those lacking discipline pay dearly. They lose wealth, reputation, and allies. Power isn't permission to do whatever you want. Power demands calculation and self-control. The wise use victory as a launch pad, not a resting room. They measure the long-term impact of each action. Discipline means sustaining a lasting edge. It's daily work, not a moment of pride. Practicing discipline starts with small things. It's the habit of reading, reflecting, and adjusting. It's the ability to take responsibility for mistakes. True leaders don't dodge failure. They pay the price and draw systematic lessons. Ultimately, discipline protects you from yourself. It's the armor between you and the illusion of glory. And here's the question you must answer. If you succeed today, do you dare doubt yourself? Number 12, the final law of genius, become irreplaceable. Don't aim to be loved. Aim to be necessary. That's the timeless rule of intelligent power. The loved are easily replaced. The necessary becomes an unshakable foundation. Becoming necessary starts with solving critical problems. Find tasks others can't do well. Do them so brilliantly they can't be ignored. Deep expertise is the first path. But expertise alone isn't enough. You must make your skill hard to replicate. Document tasks, but keep the key secrets yours. Build processes that only you fully understand. Then, design a network that depends on your skills. Place yourself at the heart of daily systems. When everything runs smoothly, you hold the key. Controlling information is another way to secure your place. Those who know more decide faster. Become a trusted source of information. Not a loud source, but a valuable one. Create a domain of expertise that the organization needs. When crises hit, they'll turn to you. That's the moment you become indispensable. But don't rely solely on personal skill. Design structures that make others depend on you. Build processes, assign tasks, set standards. Make people operate to the rhythm you set. When the structure is vital, you stand at its core. Create multiple exits for the organization that only you control. Managing key suppliers is an advantage. Controlling distribution channels is another strength. Invest in lasting, critical relationships. Those involved will keep you in place. Learn to make your value measurable. If your benefits are clear, they're hard to dismiss. Data silences baseless objections. At the same time, make your role hard to replace. Train others, but keep the core for yourself. Let them grow, but ensure you retain the edge. Position yourself as infrastructure, not just an individual. Infrastructure is harder to remove than a person. Establish rituals or habits around your presence. Rituals make your absence feel like a loss. When things collapse without you, you are in power. Power doesn't need declaring when people need you. But don't let necessity turn into exploitation. Necessity brings responsibility and credibility. If you abuse it, they'll find ways to replace you. So, maintain credibility with consistent results. Invest in discipline over image. Keep secrets but act responsibly. Diversify your value to avoid being a single weak link. If everything ties to you, have multiple outlets. Preserve energy by systematizing operations. One person can't do everything forever. Make yourself a condition of survival, not just an individual. When you become a condition of survival, you are powerful. You don't need to beg for power. You just need to maintain operational standards. And when they need you, they'll follow. The final question is one you must answer. Do you want to be loved or to be necessary? That choice shapes your life and your power. Conclusion. Genius is a crime against mediocrity. It's a declaration and a challenge. It doesn't call you to be cruel. It calls you to be awake and purposeful. Genius disrupts the crowd's slumber. It trades safety for clarity. Clarity is often mistaken for a threat. But that threat is the source of change. History remembers those who see through the surface. History forgets those who only seek praise. The path of the clear-sighted isn't easy. It demands sacrifice and resolve. You'll lose shallow relationships. You'll be misunderstood many times. You'll bear the cost of loneliness. In return, you gain self-determination. You gain the ability to shape reality. You don't live to be loved at all times. You live to become irreplaceable. Don't try to be loved more than necessary. Don't trade freedom for comfort. Practice discipline over chasing praise. Hide when needed and strike when the time is right. Use knowledge as a weapon, not as jewelry. Build structures that make others need you. True power comes from necessity. When you become a condition of survival, you are powerful. Don't fear being called immoral for speaking the truth. Don't fear being called cunning for calculating well. Choosing the hard path is the mark of maturity. If you choose that path, take responsibility. Learn to conceal, learn to act, learn to control. Forge your will. Keep discipline. Nurture long-term vision. Now I invite you to join the discussion. Write this sentence in the comments to affirm your choice. Genius is a crime against mediocrity. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.